Hello, beloved friends, and welcome, welcome. Thanks for tuning in. Tamie M, Joyce here, Empowerment Life Coach. And what I want to talk to you about is narcissistic abuse healing that works. Narcissistic abuse healing that actually works. But before I begin this video, I just want to quickly announce that we have a few spots available in the calendar this week for the free one-to-one consult with either myself or a member of my team to apply to see if you qualify to work with me in my 8-week transformational coaching program, the Freedom Class. So if that's of interest to you, be sure to check out the links in the description below after the video. At the end of the video, you'll want to catch the video first, but go to the links in the description below and you can click on the link to apply to see if you qualify for a free one-to-one consult with us. And we'll look forward to speaking with you soon, see whether or not we're a good fit to work together and go from there. Now with that, let's get started. For fantastic tips and advice on how to fully heal and recover from codependency and narcissistic abuse, be sure to subscribe to my channel and hit that bell to be notified when I post new videos throughout the week. So let's talk about narcissistic abuse healing that actually works. First and foremost, the important thing that I want to impress upon you is this: we don't heal in our heads. I can tell you this from both personal and professional experience. So here's what I mean by that. For years and years and years and years, I was seeking solutions, seeking answers, fully trying to figure out A, what the hell was wrong with me? And B, why did I keep repeating these patterns? Other people seem to be able to attract reasonably healthy, wonderful, committed, amazing relationships, and I kept attracting one high spectrum destructive narcissist after another. Other people seem to be able to commit, get married, and now things often appear on the outside, not so much what they actually are on the inside, but I was observing in my life to a large degree, lots of people didn't seem to have a problem committing, getting married, and moving into lasting, happy, healthy love. I, on the other hand, just couldn't make it work. I was constantly finding myself in a situation where I was being gaslit, manipulated, scapegoated, abused emotionally, psychologically, messed with, played with in many, many ways, diminished, demeaned, criticized. I mean, on and on and on it went, right? So I found myself like, at a certain point, if you're reasonably intelligent, you're going to put it together that I'm the common denominator here. So what the hell's going on, right? Like, why is this so freaking hard for me? So off I went, seeking solutions and seeking answers. And I tried everything. I read book after book. I went from talk therapy therapist to therapist to therapist. I went to Tony Robbins events and seminars. I attended spiritual workshops and seminars. I worked with a hypnotherapist. I went into timeline therapy with a hypnotherapist. I worked with life coaches. I tried it all. And eventually, the good news is I found powerful, very powerful solutions that actually worked. And what I learned was all of those years, all of that seeking, gathering information, reading books, going to seminars, going to workshops, participating, working in that personal development environment, it all had value. It all contributed in a very slow but sure way to moving me in the direction of where I needed to go. But it really was just scratching the surface, because what I was doing was absorbing content and information, and it was all very cerebral. And although that can be validating, and it can certainly be helpful in terms of beginning to make sense of like what the hell's been going on with us, and we can start to discover that the issue is not so much what's wrong with us, but what the hell happened to us. So gathering all of this information from a very cerebral, intellectual place was helpful to some degree and had value, but it did almost nothing in terms of moving me forward in my healing and recovery, specifically from codependency, adult child syndrome, and most importantly, narcissistic abuse. I had been born into a very, very narcissistic family. Hurt people, hurting people, right? And although not everyone in my family of origin, in my opinion, would qualify as a high spectrum destructive narcissist, many of them would. And, you know, every flavor of destructive narcissism, overt, covert, you name it, I had that experience to a large degree by the time I was 5, right? So, you know, by the time I was 25, I was quite a mess, to be honest with you. I was quite a mess. I was in a lot of pain. So there I was trying to figure it all out, and I'm seeking information and seeking solutions by virtue of taking on all of this information, but it didn't do anything to help me heal what had happened to me. So that's why I'm starting off with, we don't heal in our heads, because I speak to people every single day, whether it be people who get on the phone with me to learn about my coaching program, or, you know, people that I'm actually working with in my coaching practice, or, you know, friends in recovery, not in recovery, you name it. I speak to people every day who are still in that place that I was so many years ago, right? Where they're listening to one YouTube video after another, they're reading one book after another, and they're trying to figure it all out. And again, don't get me wrong, this stuff has value, but I'm here to tell you the truth. It's maximum 5% of the game, maximum 5% of the game. If you stay in your head, consuming the knowledge, consuming the information, and you don't actually ever get about the business of coming down into your body and making conscious contact with your feelings, past and present, you're going to have a very, very difficult time really making progress in terms of lasting healing and recovery. You'll have a very difficult time. So first and foremost, we don't heal in our heads. That's not to negate that the information that you're gathering isn't helpful. For sure it is, but understand it is just scratching the surface. We have to be willing to get out of our heads, come down into our bodies, feel the feelings we've been running from for many of us for decades. If you're anything like I was, medicating yourself from the feelings that, you know, we were terrified to feel, because there's an aspect of us, a very real aspect of us, that is afraid that these feelings are going to annihilate us. I'll never forget in early days when I really got on the path of very serious healing and recovery, it occurred to me one day that, wow, that feeling isn't going to kill me. There was an aspect of my subconscious mind that I today understand fully was my wounded inner child, a very real aspect of us that goes with us wherever we go. And to a large degree, before we get into our healing and recovery journeys, is driving the bus of our life, subconsciously driving the bus of our life, right? And that aspect of me, whatever she had been through in very early days in her life, had made a decision that if she felt the full brunt of her feelings, they could potentially annihilate her. And I didn't realize I had been carrying that subconscious belief until I really started to dive deep into the healing and recovery work. So we really have to, all of that is to say, we really have to be willing, yes, gather the information, yes, read the books, but we really have to be willing to go further if we really want to make progress. It's safe in our heads, right? Which is why we like to stay there. Often it has served us well in other areas of our life in terms of being able to think our way out of things. But if you have been narcissistically abused for any length of time in your life, you've probably already figured out my sweet, dear, beloved friend, that you are not going to think your way out of this one. We can't think ourselves into healing and recovery. We actually have to be willing to feel the feelings, as terrifying as that might be. We have to be willing to feel the feelings. You have to feel it to heal it. True story. Now, next on the list, in terms of healing that actually works when it comes to narcissistic abuse, we have to recognize that there are subconscious patterns at play. In my program, one of the modules that I created is all about, it's completely devoted to your subconscious magnetic relationship patterns. There are some really amazing books out there on the subject. My favorite happened to be written by Harville Hendricks, if you want to look into those. But here's the thing. As I say often, you'll hear me say it. You've probably heard me say it before if you've tuned in before, and you'll hear me say it again if you tune in again. 95% of the game of life is subconscious. Only 5% of the game of life is conscious. And if you're in a situation where you are being narcissistically abused, I assure you those programs were set up in early childhood. The likelihood that those programs were set up in early childhood, from early childhood experiences, even if your parents were fully well-intended, even if your parents are really good people who really did the best they could with the resources they had, human beings doing the best they can with the resources they had, for many of us growing up in the 50s and the 60s and 70s, even with well-intended parents, programs get imprinted in the first 5 to 7 years of life that set us up with subconscious patterns. And for those of us whose parents were not so well-intended, or whose step-parents were not so well-intended, or whose family of origins at large, or anyone who happened to be in a position of authority and influence over us who were not so well-intended, if you're anything like me, experiencing severe abandonment, abuse, narcissistic abuse specifically, by the people in positions of authority. Not all of them, but many of them, enough to do their damage, and this is the case. This is not woe is me. I've done my work. I continue to do my work. I'm doing really, really well, have been for a very long time. But I share my personal stories with you because many of you can relate, and I want to inspire you and give you hope. And the reality is, although many of us, have our subconscious programming that isn't serving us, even though we grew up with well-intended parents, many of us were, pretty seriously hurt really, really young. And as a child, as an itty bitty, tender, precious, vulnerable child, the imprinting, the impact that leaves on us, we underestimate the extent to which that actually affects our adult experiences. Who we're attracted to, who's attracted to us, what unresolved subconscious patterns and programs and issues and trauma we're trying to resolve by virtue of calling into our lives more of the same, right? Our unresolved issues calls more of its likeness into our lives, right? So when it comes to healing and recovery from narcissistic abuse that actually works, we've got to recognize that there are subconscious programs at play, patterns that are not going to break or go away by themselves. There are very specific things that we need to do in order to connect the dots and make sense of what that subconscious programming is, so that we can heal it, up-level it, clear it, shift it, and fully become who it is that we came to this planet to be. Until we are willing to get out of the conscious mind, think, and become willing to come down into our bodies and feel and do the work of up-leveling what's going on with us subconsciously, it's going to be very difficult for us to make any progress in terms of healing and recovery, lasting healing and recovery that actually works to improve your life, the quality of your life, how you feel in your own skin, the quality of the people you attract into your life, the nature of your relationships. It's going to be very, very hard to make lasting progress until you actually come down into the subconscious and do that work. It's got to be done. It's got to be done. There's no other way. Now, next on the list in terms of narcissistic abuse healing that actually works, bit of a mouthful there, narcissistic abuse healing that actually works, boundaries. I say it all the time, and I'll continue to talk about it all the time. I grew up personally, just like many of you, in an environment where nobody had any boundaries. Nobody had any boundaries with me. Nobody had any boundaries. There were no boundaries verbally, mentally, emotionally, physically, and to some degree, even sexually. You know, 1 out of 3 of us were sexually abused, molested as children. Women, it's estimated 1 out of 3. Men, it's estimated 1 out of 6. You want to talk about a lack of boundaries, never mind a lack of empathy and conscience, and the manipulation into secrecy and all the, you know, sickness that goes on there, right? Like, we grow up in these environments where there's no boundaries. And then we wonder why we land in adulthood with no boundaries and absolutely no idea how to begin to set healthy limits and boundaries for ourselves with difficult people or anyone. So when it comes to healing and recovery from narcissistic abuse healing in a way that works, developing this skill set to set healthy limits and boundaries for yourself, developing internal boundaries, understanding where I end and you begin, right? Understanding my value and my worth, regardless of the external validation or lack thereof, right? Being able to be the generative source of self-love and self-esteem because I have healthy internal boundaries as I do my work, and the capacity to set healthy limits and boundaries, external boundaries with others, right? Moderate myself, my feelings, my behavior, my stuff, and understand that your stuff is your stuff. All of that is a skill set that is vital to the healing and recovery path in a way that actually produces lasting results. Narcissistic abuse healing in a way that works. You can't leave this piece out. It's a skill set that must be developed, and you can develop it. I promise you, you can develop it. There was a time many years ago where I wouldn't have known a boundary if it smacked me in the face. And today, I have absolutely no issue setting boundaries any way, anytime, anywhere with anyone. And that didn't happen in 5 minutes. That didn't happen like this. That's many years of developing the skill, exercising the muscle, putting it all into practice. And as a result, I live a very peaceful, happy, productive, satisfied, healthy, amazing, abundant, wonderful life today. Without healthy boundaries, it's very hard to do that, very hard to do that. So it is a skill set that you can develop. And if you want to embark on the journey of healing from narcissistic abuse in a way that works, vital, absolutely vital piece to the puzzle. Now, comment below and let me know whether or not you've embarked on your official healing and recovery journey from narcissistic abuse. And if so, what is it exactly? What specifically do you think you're doing that's really making the big difference for you? Now, next on the list of narcissistic abuse healing that actually works is energy healing techniques. I use a couple of very specific energy healing techniques that are really easy to learn and really easy to use. I have a certification in these particular modalities that I use with my clients in my program, in my practice, and you can actually learn how to use these yourself relatively easily. And it's really a function of understanding that there's more going on in our 3D reality than meets the eye. And when we have a background of abuse, neglect, trauma, and when we have, recently, if not presently, are currently living in, an environment where we are being targeted, abused, harmed on any level, emotionally, psychologically, spiritually, what have you. We're feeling that emotional pain. But once that feeling passes, there's a residue that gets left within our energetic force field. And that residue can build up to be full-blown blockages. So we wonder why we have such high anxiety, why we are so easily triggered, why we walk into a family function with our family of origin and suddenly we're 5 years old again, right? We regress fully, right? When we're in the presence of these people sometimes. We wonder why we, manage to get divorced from the abusive partner or extricate ourselves from the abusive work environment with a highly narcissistic boss, but still suffer from PTSD, if not CPTSD symptoms, right? And it's because the body remembers, right? There is a very real energetic component, energy. Emotion is really energy in motion. So there's an energetic component to all of this. And if we leave that aspect out of our healing and recovery, we really slow down the process. So for example, one of the tools that I use in my practice with my clients is EFT, emotional freedom techniques. Very, very easy to learn how to do this. It's a question of putting it into practice and using it consistently. And these types of energy healing modalities are so powerful. They're deceptive because they're simple yet so powerful. So we forget how powerful they are. And if we can practice using them on a regular, consistent basis, in particular in early days in our healing and recovery journey, we literally, it's like pouring gasoline on the fire of our healing and recovery. We literally fast track our healing and recovery, because now it's not just in our head, cerebral, or coming down into our body and feeling the painful feelings, but we're literally doing the work to shift the energy, clear the blocks, move that trapped energetic energy that is, being held in our field, and quite magnetic in nature. If you're wondering why you keep attracting the same people, well, this plays a part, right? Like this trapped emotional energy in our field literally acts like magnets, right? So when we can use very elegant, gentle, yet powerful, simple, very simple and therefore deceptive in their simplicity, but nonetheless very, very powerful energy healing modalities to clear our energetic force fields of all the blocked, trapped energy derived from the wounding and trauma, whether that's from many years ago or right up to present day. We make progress fast. We feel better fast. And it doesn't involve taking a pill. I'm not a doctor. It's not for me to say whether or not you should be taking, any sort of medication. That is always between you and your doctor. But I think it's pretty cool to know that there are other options out there as well that can have you feeling better fast, feeling more grounded fast, feeling confident, clear, peaceful, fast. And from that place, having used the energy healing modalities that work so well day in and day out, from that place, grounded, clear, calm, cleaning house energetically on a regular basis as we go, we are far more able and empowered to make healthy decisions and choices from a clear perspective in our best interest, as opposed to operating from fear and our woundedness and our trauma, which, you know, as untreated or newly recovering codependents, adult children, people who have been on the receiving end of lots of narcissistic abuse, we're highly reactive. We're acting from that wounded, traumatized, fear-based place. These, again, elegant, gentle, yet powerful healing modalities, one of which would be EFT as an example, can make all the difference in your ability to stand in your power, even in early days, to ground you so that you can really start to take much better care of yourself. Now, next on the list, in terms of narcissistic abuse healing in a way that really, really works, is forgiveness work. Now, I mention this now and not at the top of the list for a very specific reason. Oftentimes, especially as highly empathic people, as people looking for, if we're still in that wounded place, that untreated codependent or adult child syndrome place, we're looking for external validation. We're looking for approval. We want peace at all costs. And often we just want to be, you know, the better person, taking the high road and, you know, being, you know, more spiritual or a better Christian or whatever it may be for you as an individual. And as such, we tend to go after the good feelings of forgiveness prematurely, in my opinion. And I say that because I myself did that for many, many years. I was fully exposed to a family of origin that were on many levels, in many ways, harmful to me emotionally, psychologically, spiritually. As an adult, it was no longer physically, but it was certainly emotional, psychological, you know, manipulation. And in my particular experience, as long as I continued to be the family scapegoat and kept all the dirty little secrets, all was well. But as soon as I started to step into my power and make contact with my authentic self and my authentic core, and really do the deep dive healing and recovery work, everything began to change, right? So the point I'm trying to make is, for a long time before I got real about my recovery and found solutions, because I was real for a long time before I found the solutions that worked. But you know, before that, I was always willing to forgive, right? I was always, you know, I wanted to be the more spiritual person, you know, the good girl. And maybe if I forgive this, you know, step monster for, you know, the 1001 time, she'd finally stop being so unbelievably abusive and psychotic in my life, right? Maybe if I, you know, just forgive that dig, that, you know, insult, that, you know, undermining, sabotaging, backstabbing, you know, behavior, whatever might have been going on. If I can just hold myself to the higher spiritual standard and forgive, maybe I'll finally get the love, acceptance, approval, validation, safety, and security that I've been starved for my whole freaking life. And I was fully putting the cart before the horse. And what ended up happening as a result, from my very codependent, untreated adult child perspective, was that I was constantly being narcissistically abused over and over and over again, you know. And we do this in our romantic lives as well, right? The guy shows us exactly, or the girl, for some of you, shows us exactly who they are in early days, and we decide we're going to forgive, because maybe if we forgive them and we explain long and hard enough about how that hurt us, they'll change. But the reality is they've already shown us who they are, and they have no interest in changing. And we forgive and we forgive and we hope and we forgive and we forgive, right? So, you know, what I ultimately learned was that doesn't work. That doesn't work. But here's what else that doesn't work. What else doesn't work is carrying around a heart, a mind, a body, a field full of resentment, That doesn't work either. So what I have learned and what I teach is the healthy balance in this regard. No matter who tells you that you've just got to forgive, you've just got to take the high road, you've just, I say no, absolutely no. What must come first is honoring you, validating you, loving you, respecting you. Trying to forgive these harmful, destructive people before you do any of that is fully putting the cart before the horse and volunteering to be further abused, further diminished, further demeaned, further targeted, further exploited, further manipulated, further abused. You're literally putting your hand up for it, right? So, really, long before you even get on the path of forgiveness, take the time to honor you, your feelings, your experience. How about that wounded inner child inside of you who has been so abandoned, so neglected, so abused, so traumatized, so terrified, so lonely, so neglected, so abandoned, so targeted, so abused? When does he or she get to be seen, heard, acknowledged? When does that precious, tender little child inside of you get to be honored, validated, and respected? When we do that first and are willing to honor our experience first, regardless of the gaslighting, the smearing, all the stuff that goes on, I'm going to hang on to me. I'm going to tell myself the truth. I'm going to honor me. I'm going to love me. I'm going to respect me. I'm going to do what I need to do to take care of me. I'm going to take radical responsibility for me. I'm going to take radical responsibility for my life, my happiness, my well-being, my peace of heart, my peace of mind, and therefore my healing and recovery. When we do that, my friends, forgiveness happens quite organically. We get to a place where whether we're keeping them in our life or cutting them loose and letting them go, we can fully forgive, let go, release, lighten love from a distance, and be at peace. I say it all the time and I'm going to say it some more. We forgive for us, not them. We forgive for us, not them. All of the forgiveness work that I have had to do in my life set me free, brought me peace. That's the bottom line, because I am my number one responsibility. And even those of you who are moms, of course, your children are your top responsibility and priority. But what you're doing for you and your healing and your recovery has a dramatic effect on your ability to be there for, the quality of what you're able to bring to those relationships with your children. So even then, understand that this is your number one responsibility. So when I say forgiveness work, I mean forgiveness work. We have a whole module of it dedicated to the science of forgiveness in my program. And it's week 8, not week 1, for a reason, because it is not step 1. When we make it step 1, we harm ourselves. We put ourselves in harm's way, and we aren't taking care of ourselves. When we put the horse before the cart and we take care of ourselves and honor ourselves and love ourselves and do our healing and recovery work for ourselves and take responsibility for all of that ourselves, the forgiveness work is a whole lot easier to do. And it happens quite organically. and quite naturally, and it's nobody else's business, because the truth is, when it comes to these issues, it's between you and the higher power of your understanding. That's the bottom line. And from there, the peace and freedom, indescribable, absolutely indescribable. Now, last but not least, when it comes to narcissistic abuse healing that actually works, time. You know, many years ago, I heard an acronym for the word time. Things I must earn. Things I must earn over time. Time heals nothing. I can tell you, I had a lot of examples of that in my own family of origin, how time heals nothing. If you've been tuning into me for any length of time, you've heard me talk about the fact that these issues, codependency, narcissistic abuse, and all of its effects are progressive in nature. Left untreated, they get worse, not better over time, just like any other addictive process, right? So time heals nothing. It's what we do with that time that heals. It's what we do for ourselves, how we support ourselves, what we sign up for, and what we walk away from over time. We can't heal from codependency and narcissistic abuse in a real and lasting way overnight. It's not going to happen. It takes time. Now, the truth is, if you're doing the right things, you can make serious progress quickly. You can quantum shift very quickly. But I'll tell you the truth, I've been at this very serious healing and recovery journey of mine at the time of this recording for more than 15 years, and I still do the work. I still do the work. And if I fall off the beam and I stop doing the things that are what I consider the work for me to keep me spiritually, emotionally, psychologically fit, I know it, I feel it, it shows. My guy knows it, he sees it, it shows, right? So there are things that we can do over time that change everything for us from the inside out. We need more than time, but we also have to be willing to be patient, kind, and loving with ourselves over time as we travel the path. To expect that you're going to embark on a serious healing and recovery journey and be done in no time is unrealistic. It's unrealistic. It takes time. There are things to look at, things to feel, things to address, relationships to deal with, letters to write, letters to send, letters to burn, right? Not all the letters we write do we send, right? There are things to learn, things to do for our body, for our energy field, for our mind, our heart, our soul. All of these things take time. Now, again, you can make huge progress relatively quickly if you're doing the right things, but even at that time, over time, things I must earn. What am I doing with the time? It's great to say, you know, I've been no contact for a year, but if that's all you've done, it's no different than the alcoholic putting the cork in the bottle. That's not enough. That's not enough. What's going on under the surface? If you don't address that stuff, it just keeps getting bigger, bigger, bigger. The patterns keep repeating and you keep attracting more of the same. And we all know that's no fun. So time, things I must earn. What am I doing with that time? What am I doing with that time? My friends, I hope you got some value out of that today. If you liked what you heard, don't forget to like, comment, give it a share if you think anyone would find value in this. And if you're new to the channel, please be sure to subscribe and hit that bell to be notified when I post new videos throughout the week. And once again, I'm just going to mention quickly that we have a few spots available in the calendar this week for a free one-to-one consult with myself or a member of my team. If you'd like to learn more about the possibility of working with me in my 8-week transformational coaching program, the Freedom Class, there's a link in the description below where you can apply to see if you qualify for a free one-to-one call with us. And with that, I'm going to call it a wrap. And as always, I will leave you with this. Know your value. Know your value and unlock your freedom. So much love. Bye for now.